was waiting on my flock Sarah to get here to start the show. Now that she showed up, we can get all this shit going. Right on, guys. What's happening today? Let me get the camera set up. And let me cut this mother. I always tend to forget to turn my little monitoring system I got going on down. I want to make sure that camera's set up good. We'll get things going with my man, Pat McCormick. And the theme for 13 o'clock live. You know, I meant to text my friend Thrash Pondo Ponds and let him know that I was going live tonight. I'm glad he survived the hurricane. Special shout out to my friend Thrash Pondo Ponds. So what do you say we play a song or two? I don't think I'm going to play too many songs. I'm going to play like one song. We're going to play a tune, and then we'll watch the main attraction. Then I got something from Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and then I got something really special I'm going to do at the end of the show. But I don't want to do that till the end of the show because it's going to be deep. I mean, it's going to be real deep. So I'm going to play one of my favorite Sasquatch tunes while people come on in, and then we're going to get the main attraction started with Thomas Steenburg, and we're going to be hearing about Bigfoot. And this is like one of my favorite little freelance Bigfoot songs ever created. I hope you enjoy it.
Sasquatch song.
while we wait for people to come in.
Well, in the mountains of Arkansas, that's where I go to break the law. Just trying to grow my mountain weed. When I get out in that trail, I get caught up in that smell. Looks like I'm here to stay for good. But wait a second, what's that there? Holy fuck, I think it's a bear. Nope, it's definitely not a bear. Well, his eyes are red and sit real low. Holy shit, man, I think he's stoned. He ate damn near all my weed. Well, that's the way it's gonna be. Me and Sasquatch in the trees, smoking pipe, trying not to laugh. Well, it's hard to believe in fairy tales and fantasies. But Sasquatch, you are my friend. Well, he's 10 foot 10 with dark red hair, and he doesn't really have a care. His foot is twice the size of mine. Well, we don't really talk, we just hang out by the river when we're catching trout. He doesn't even need a boat. Well, that's the way it's gonna be. Me and Sasquatch in the trees, smoking pipe, trying not to laugh. Well, it's hard to believe in fairy tales and fantasies. Sasquatch, you are my friend. But when his eye comes down, he gets real low. That's when he eats a couple of toes to soothe all those sassy needs. And he's got a lot of really weird shit, like a sack of lizards in a possum pit, and a tree that's full of shoes. That's the way it's gonna be. Me and Sasquatch in the trees, smoking pipe, trying not to laugh. Well, it's hard to believe in fairy tales and fantasies. Sasquatch, you are my friend. Well, in the mountains of Arkansas, that's where I go to break the law. Just trying to grow my mountain weed. Well, I'm friends with an ape that's 10 foot tall, and I don't even have to call. He's always there, smoking me.
Thanks for coming tonight. I'm your host, Wolfman Dan, bringing you the hits here on 13 o'clock live. I want to appreciate everybody like my fucking Sarah and King L. Moxley who has joined me here tonight. I know Moxley ain't no big Bigfoot fan, so I really know it's a stretch for you to be here watching this stuff. Hey, I'm thinking about doing a wrestling stream on the DJ Wrestling channel as soon as I get to 1,000 subscribers. You think that's a good idea, Mox? You want to sit there for an hour and listen to me talk crap about some wrestlers? Because you know I can talk crap with the best of them. I got a way of talking crap. Hey, we're going to be checking out this here lecture tonight. And this lecture is by a guy named Thomas Steenburg. And if you're familiar with my friend Nikki's channel, which is called Sasquatch Secrets, you can see this guy on that channel. He's kind of a regular over there. That's where I picked up on him. And I found this old lecture he did. Let me see what year it's from. Hold on for a minute. Yeah, it's not brand new. It's a few years old. I'm not going to say how old, but it's a few years old. But it's a lecture he did in British Columbia in Canada. It's from a website. Hold on for a minute. It's from a website called City of Lacey from British Columbia, Canada. And I want to tell the guys over at city of Lacey, British Columbia, Canada. If you want the 12 cents for me showing this video, feel free to claim it. Just please don't block my show. Because I don't ask permission, I ask forgiveness. If I'm going to show something, I'm going to show what I want to. And YouTube can kiss my fat ass.
He is one of the best-known Canadian Sasquatch researchers and is an active field investigator and author. He has researched hundreds of sightings and discovered over 100 tracks at the Chilliwack River. You can see one of his casts over at the Lacey Museum. The British Columbia resident has spent nearly 40 years investigating sightings in his lifelong search for evidence to prove Sasquatch's existence. He also devotes much effort to debunking false reports and hoaxes. His 3 books are The Sasquatch in Alberta, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, The Continuing Mystery, and In Search of Giants. He has also co-authored Meet the Sasquatch with fellow Canadian Bigfooter Christopher Murphy. Please join me in welcoming Thomas Steenburg.
Thank you, everybody. Is this mic system working? Okay, good. Thomas Steenburg, the title of my presentation is The Sasquatch in British Columbia. As you heard in the introduction, I have spent since 1978 researching and trying to prove the existence of whether or not we share the North American continent with a large hair-covered bipedal primate. Still trying to figure that out. All right. As a researcher, and I just say to anyone who wants to start getting involved in this kind of research into this, there's one golden rule. Thou shalt not hoax. Not ever, ever, even for a joke. Thou shalt not hoax. Because if you get caught, your integrity's gone, and you'll never be taken seriously again. Because believe me, in the Sasquatch field, we don't forget. And we always remember. All right? Sasquatch in B.C. Ambrose Point, Mask. As we all know, First Nations have had stories of the Sasquatch going along long before the Europeans ever came to the North American continent. Ambrose Point was a member of the Chehalis band, or Stahalis as they like to be called, which is in the Harrison Lake, Harrison River area. He made this mask and it was used in their ceremonial dances and stuff about the Sasquatch in around 1920s and 1930s. A man named J.W. Burns, who was a Caucasian man who was on the reserve as an Indian agent, to put it very politely, he was a spy for the Crown. But he was very, very popular with the people there and got very friendly with them, and they started telling him their stories. Okay? Ambrose Point gave this mask to Peter Burns because the men were good friends. And J.W. Burns, or did I say Peter Burns? J.W. Burns kept it most of his life and displayed it in his home, and he decided to donate it to the Vancouver Museum so the public could always see it. They really never displayed it, and they kept it in storage somewhere. They brought it out for us a few times, and when we had displays going on about the Sasquatch, including this travel exhibit when it was there. But they basically kept it locked away. But fortunately, recently, not too long ago, it was given back to Stahalis people, and they now proudly display it in the council chambers, and they still use it for their mask and their ceremonies, and the public can still see it today. The Sunaqua, you always know, better translation, loosely translated, the wild woman of the woods. You always know the Sunaqua in First Nation and oral history tradition, because she always has whistling lips. All right? That's from the story pole outside the museum in Victoria, British Columbia. It's been there forever. And it portrays the Sunaqua. The Bukwas. Some say the Bukwas is the male, the Sunaqua is the female. But from the Klaklaki-Wak First Nation tribe on the upper coast of Vancouver Island and the islands in the mainland, they call it the Bukwas. And it's kind of funny. You'll see it written down as the Coatl First Nation, but we learned the hard way. It's actually Klaklakiwak, and I had to go over that a dozen times before I got that right. But as you can see, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of First Nations, different names for them, different beliefs about them, different stories about their origins, but they're all basically talking about the same thing. Okay?
Okay.
Large hair covered, walks like a man, rather ape-like in appearance. Some of them have different beliefs about what they're capable of, different stories, what their origins are. But,
Okay.
you know, it all basically translates into the same thing. You've got certain First Nations oral traditions like the Thunderbird that some of them have heard of, but others have not, right? The mighty mountain lizard, which is kind of like a dinosaur-like thing that the Cochahelas have never heard of, but on what was the Queen Charlotte Islands and the Haida Gwaii as part of their nation, but they don't share them. But for some reason, what we call today the Sasquatch, or as the case here, the Bukwas, or Sonequa, or Oma, or Skookum, or the various other dozens of names that go all up and down the coast, they all have heard of it, and they all basically describe the same thing. And of course, in Sasquatch lore and in the history of this and the stories, we have what we call our classic tales. Tales you've read about in old books, tales you've a dozen times. You have them here in Washington, the Fred Beck story, the story of 8 Canyon, Mount St. Helens. This is the Chapman House in the Ruby Creek region of British Columbia, 1941. Miss Jenny Chapman says she was doing her dishes. 2 of her children, she had 3, came running in the house saying, "Mommy, Mommy, there's a strange cow coming out of the woods." She looked out. She didn't see a strange cow coming out of the woods. She saw what she described as a large, hair-covered, gorilla-like thing, rather man-like in the way it walked, coming towards the house, and she was absolutely terrified. She covered the kids with a blanket, went out the back door, down to the banks of the Fraser River, went through the local cemetery, back towards the railroad tracks, and fled. Mr. George Chapman, who returned later on, was a little upset finding his family gone, the door swinging open, and all these huge footprints going across the field towards his house. Seemed to circle the house, actually at one point seemed to enter the house. Then it went into a lean-to, which is the remains of, you see right there, that used to be beside the house. Opened a barrel of salted salmon. They assumed sampled it, didn't like what it tasted, and dumped the contents out all over the place. So there were little pieces of salted salmon all over. Then the track sort of went off to the river's edge, and then turned around, went back across the field, crossed the CPR fence, and back up to the mountains. Now, a man named Tiffany, who was working on a railway yard on the railway line back in those days, him and 2 other men were just doing their job when all of a sudden Mrs. Chapman came running around the bend of the railway with her kids saying, help me, the Sasquatch is after me. So they went and investigated, and they went to the house. It's known as the Chapman incident, and it's one of the classic tales. And the story is, if you read about it in most of the older books on this, is the Chapmans abandoned the house after this happened and never went back. Well, that's not entirely true. They stayed another week. But something kept coming back. Because at 2 o'clock, between 2 and 3 in the morning, their dogs would go crazy, and they would hear this clicking type noise and barking type noise outside, but they never actually saw it again. Also, Mrs. Chapman said it was rather a yellowish teak color. Very dark skin in the face, but the hair was rather a teak color, kind of similar to the door. She just said it was like a boat oar color. And there were local stories at the time of a Sasquatch seen in the area that had the nickname Big Blondie. So I think it's a possibility that they saw this very animal. All right? That's the house. The house was eventually abandoned after a week, but not totally, because other relatives of the Chapmans continued to occupy the house. And what really caused it to be abandoned was the last great flood of the Fraser River in 1948, when this whole property was about 5 feet underwater. It was right on the river's edge. Even half the graves in the local cemetery were disinterred and went floating downstream. It was a real mess. Yeah, we haven't had a flood in the Fraser River like that since. And since then, they've increased the dikes. But that's what basically caused the house to be abandoned and was left to the elements. This picture was taken by the late Rene Hinden in the early 1960s, when the house was still standing. You can't find any trace of it today. That's what the property looks like today, all right? Those are the two big trees there where the house was standing. The property now belongs to a friend of mine named Schneider. Very nice gentleman. If anyone ever wants to visit this site of a classic tale, just let me know. I'll give him a call and we'll take you down to have a look. He's always willing to let people. We know these are the same two trees. There's Mr. Schneider there on his property. Because this picture taken by John Green in 1957 of the house when it was still there, and there are the two trees, though they were quite a bit shorter in 1957, okay? But we know they're the same two trees because they're the rare Siamese twin trees where you get one trunk and two stems growing out of it. That's rare enough, but getting two of them side by side is extremely rare, you know? So those are the same trees. They're just a lot taller. So we kind of wondered, you see, this picture was taken in 1957. We were there in the early 2000s visiting the site, and the trees are a lot bigger. Where exactly was that house? So we took this picture, and it wasn't easy. It was pretty easy. All you had to do was line the mountains up. Even the snow patches looked pretty well the same after 51 years. Yeah. And we superimposed the house from the old 57 photograph and put it where it would be today. Matter of fact, those trees would be overgrowing it if it was still there today. It wasn't too hard. It was quite easy. That's how we did it. Look at the snow here on that. Yeah. But like I said, you go there today, you won't find so much as a rusty nail. As a matter of fact, when I was there in 2001, that whole field was just crawling with tent caterpillars that were eating everything. So, yeah. We have local landmarks, but in British Columbia, see, Canadians, we are a little bit more laid back. One thing I notice a difference between Sasquatch in Canada and Bigfoot in the United States is the attitude of the people. In America, Bigfoot's everywhere, you know. You get Bigfoot statues, restaurants say, come in and have our Bigfoot burgers, have some Bigfoot pizza, you know, statues everywhere in California. People's here, there's a documentary on television tonight, it's about Bigfoot. That's interesting, I'm going to watch that. In Canada, quite often there's a special on the Sasquatch. That's interesting, but the hockey game's on, I'm watching that. So for many, many years, the Sasquatch Inn was the only local landmark in the Harrison area where I am that it would even remind you of this creature's presence. And Harrison Hot Springs is probably the only community in all of Canada that's anywhere near what you have here in the Pacific Northwest United States, where you have, you know, like Willow Creek and all areas of California where Bigfoot statues all over the place. Right? As a matter of fact, I was so used to going by this place. I remember coming out of the old building and seeing the bats flying out of the wall. It was I really expected to find the place burned down one day, but they actually redid it, and I'm glad they did. So it'll be there. Well, the Chehalis First Nation, this is where the term Sasquatch was first coined. This is where the name comes from. They like to call themselves the Chehalis, but everyone calls it the Chehalis people. And this is their First Nation symbol, obviously based on 352, the Patterson Gimlin film. Another close classic stories from the Chehalis First Nation. Serafine Long in 1871, as a young woman, she claimed a Sasquatch picked her up, covered her eyes with pitch, and carried her off the Morris Mountain, where it held her there for a very long period of time, impregnating her. But she begged and begged as her health failed and her pregnancy advanced, saying to the Sasquatch that was holding her, "I want to see my people again before I die." And the story is the Sasquatch covered her eyes with pitch again, took her back and dropped her off where he picked her up. Lesson here, fellas, nagging works even on a Sasquatch. Right? And as the story is, a few months later, she gave birth to a malformed baby that soon died, and there was no more ever heard of the story. Now, this is one of the classic tales, of course. This is the only photograph taken of Seraphine. It was taken in 1938 when she was in her late 50s. As a matter of fact, I think she died about a month after this picture was taken. Wasn't that, Chris? Yeah. And it happened in 1871. Now, is the story true? Or is it a case of she was supposed to marry one young man in the community, was actually in love with another one, ran away with the other one, got knocked up by the other one, and then made this story up to cover up her infidelity? Who knows? But that's the story. One of the classic tales of Seraphine Long. And that's Moore's Mountain. Yes, it is, Chris. It's nothing but a big hill. A lot of people keep thinking all the mountains in behind must be Moore's Mountain. No, that is Moore's Mountain. And in the old days, in the Shadis Reserve, according to their folk history and old tradition, the Sasquatch are a tribe of hairy giants that they drove away in battle. And every now and then they come back. And then once a year they would see the Sasquatch having fires on top of Moore's Mountain. And Moore's Mountain, back in the turn of the century, turn of the 1800s to the 1900s, was basically where semi-civilization ended, and beyond it was nothing but total wilderness, because there hadn't been any logging or anything in those days. So it was kind of like this was the gateway to the land of the Sasquatch back in the day. It's actually just nothing more than a big tree-covered hill, and there's actually a road, and you can drive right on it. J.W. Burns, I was telling you about him a little while ago. He was very friendly with the First Nation people, but basically he was a spy for the Crown, for the government, keeping tabs on them. But he was very sympathetic with life on the reservations, and the people got to trust him, and they told him their stories. After a while, he actually filled in, even though he was never a qualified or licensed teacher. He taught at the local school, and many of the older folks in the Chehalis Nation today give him credit, saying they never would have gone to school if it weren't for J.W. Burns, right? And J.W. Burns got to know the people, and he heard their tales about this creature in the woods around called the Suskus, or Staskis. All depends on who you talk to on how they pronounced it. Or Saskahe, it's also been described as. And he wrote articles that appeared in Canadian publications. And this article appeared in Maclean's magazine April 1st, April Fool's Day. So you can basically tell how serious Maclean's took the subject, right? Maclean's magazine, 1929, entitled Introducing BC's Hairy Giants. And he wrote this article, and he took their name, Suskus, or Suskis, or how they ever pronounce it, and he mispronounced it and misspelt it, and he called it Sasquatch, and it's been known as Sasquatch in Canada ever since. And that's where the name came from, okay? All the other First Nation names up and down the coast slowly got drowned out, and everyone started using the term Sasquatch. Even some of the Caucasian names up and down the coast got drowned out and got replaced by Sasquatch. If you look at a lot of newspaper articles about this creature on Vancouver Island before 1929, you'll see the term Mowgli used a lot, like from the Jungle Book. But when Sasquatch got popular, all the others were forgotten through time. Now, you American folks, you came up with your name in 1958, Bigfoot, when Jerry Crew, road contractor, came down with these big casts. The press saw it, and they never heard of the Sasquatch in Canada. They didn't know what else to call it. The article was called Bigfoot Prints. The Associated Press put Big and Foot together. Bigfoot was born. So basically, Sasquatch is the Canadian, Bigfoot's the American name for the same thing. That's how the names came about. Another classic tales, I call this my Three Amigos picture. My old buddy, the late Barry Blunt, Bill Miller, and a guy we call One Year Ed. He used to be the curator of the museum in Hope. Has anyone ever heard the name Jacko associated with the Sasquatch? It is the one story, classic tale, in which a Sasquatch was allegedly captured. The story came out in the Victoria Times Colonist in 1884. What is it? And it told the story of a capture of a creature by railway workers just before Tunnel Number 4 outside the town of Yale, B.C. in 1884 when the gold rush was still going on. They had no idea what they were dealing with. Okay, this is assuming the story is true. They had no idea what they were dealing with. The creature was examined by a doctor, Dr. Harrington, in town. The man existed. I've seen his notes. And I've seen parts of his journal. What I haven't seen is any mention at all from him that they ever looked at a thing they called Jacko in Yale, B.C. And believe me, we spent a lot of time going through the archives over there. And there was always the possibility that the Victoria Times columnist story was an early example of media tabloidism, right? Because they used to put tabloid stories in the paper to fill in space and stuff like that news. But papers never shared tabloid stories in those days. And it was not until the late 1990s that I found in the archives of the Calgary Museum an article from the Winnipeg Press, also 1884, also talking about the capture of a creature outside Yale, B.C. So there was another paper in Canada telling the story. And since then, a couple of American friends of mine, one has shown me and sent me an email of a Colorado paper that talks about, dated 1884, talking about the capture of a strange creature outside Yale, B.C. And you got to remember, in 1884, Yale was it was a bad place. It was a bad place. It was a Wild West town. Anyone ever see that show on HBO called Deadwood? They could have called that Yale town. They would have fit right in. There wasn't a week went by without a gunfight or a stabbing or a murder. Half the buildings in town were saloons. Another third of them were brothels. It was a Wild West town. Okay? A lot of the older folks back where I come from, like the late John Green and stuff, they like to think that the Canadian West was somehow more civilized, being part of the British Empire. That somehow the Canadian West wasn't as wild. Nonsense. It was just as bad, and in many cases it was worse. All right? The Northwest Mounted Police wouldn't go to Yale unless they had to, so the town had to hire its own police department and sheriff and stuff like that. And he was busy as you wouldn't believe. Hangings, shootings, murder. I mean, it was a that thing. So when something like this caught people's attention, it got noticed. So when the men approached Tunnel Number 4, which is right there, no one had ever been, as far as I knew, actually to the site of the Jacko capture, alleged Jacko capture. And this is Tunnel Number 4, outside of Yale. And the story is that they hit the brakes. It was a small train. It was a work train, just a smaller engine that's pulling a couple of flat cars and a boxcar or two with supplies in it. They saw this thing lying between the tracks and the cliff. They brought the train to a halt and blown the whistle, and whatever it was woke up, okay? And it started climbing these cliffs. The men gave chase. And they started, if you go this way, it's actually an easier slope, and they actually got above them. And he sort of got trapped. I don't know if it was this ledge or this ledge, according to the story. It could have been that one. And they started pelting the thing with rocks. They knocked him cold, apparently, according to the story. And they brought out rope, and they trusted them up, and they lowered them down, and they threw the poor thing into the boxcar. Brakes off. They used the old telegraph method, the radio in the town. The whole town was alert to what happened. Half the town was at the town train station to see this thing, but they never did because the train unloaded them at the railway yards outside of tunnel number 1. Okay? The doctor was sent for to see it. The men who captured him, they named him Jacko. He described him as 4 feet 7 inches tall. He weighed 127 pounds. Was completely covered from head to foot in hair. Was rather ape-like in appearance. Ate all vegetable matter that they gave him. Drank milk with a passion. But he advised them, don't give him any meat because he was afraid it would make him vicious. And you got to remember, this is long before anybody other than First Nations even knew what a Sasquatch was. They had no idea what they were dealing with. So the men who captured him decided, we're going to take Jacko and we're going to put him on display in Europe in a carnival, next to the Elephant Man and things like that, and make our fortune. And that's what they're supposed to do. And this is where the story goes cold because there's no mention of Jacko again anywhere in history, so we don't know what happened to him. Okay? It was a great opportunity. I wrote in the forward that a little book that Chris Murphy and the late Barry Blunt wrote about Jacko. I said it was a great chance to solve a great mystery before a mystery became great, and it just didn't happen. Okay?
Okay.
And it's really a pity. Really a pity. Assuming the story's true. There were a couple of stories. Chief Quetzalcoatl said he saw Jacko being displayed in downtown Vancouver, yet I was never able to find any mention of that in the Vancouver press at the time. There's a story of the nunnery at Bishop's Cove. They said they got handed the creature. They shaved all his hair off and bathed him in scalding water, and he died. But there's no way of knowing if that story is ever true. We just don't know what happened. Nor do we know if the story is actually true, but it is one of the classic British Columbia tales of the Sasquatch, the capture of Jacko. Oh, that's a close-up of tunnel number 4. Very shallow tunnel. You don't even know it's a tunnel until you're right on top of it. More modern stuff, or as I call it, File 149, Andrea Way. Now, this lady, I went to interview her about what happened. John Green first told the story, the late John Green. He contacted me, and I went out, made arrangements to go out there the following day. She she lives in Half Moon Bay, and she owns her own store near Gibson's, and it was a store called Hot Tamales, which I assumed was a Mexican restaurant or something like that. Turned out to be an adult store for women. Yeah. And I remember going in here, am I ever glad Rennie DeHinden never saw me go into this place. But Mrs. Ray was coming home with her little girl. Her husband, who's in the photograph, was not present, so he was not a witness to this. Coming home, when she suddenly saw a creature in the edge of her headlights come out of the cross-slow highway right in front of her, the edge of her headlights, immediately walk in 3 paces and just disappear into the trees on the left-hand side. And she said it was funny. It's kind of like there was a streak and it was gone. And that always confused me. I didn't understand it. Remember, the streak. She didn't know what that meant. She saw it come out, cross, streak, and it was gone. So I went and took a look at the situation. That's her point to where it came out. And you can see the trail in the brambles there where something had come through. Cross the road. See, there's a close-up. You can see the trail where something had come through. And that's where it disappeared, on the other side. Well, the reason, and suddenly when I looked at that spot, it made sense. Why the streak? Because remember, she's looking at it at night in her headlights, right? There's actually a 9-foot drop here off the side of the road into those horrible blackberry bushes, right? It's like a 9-foot drop. You're literally almost stepping off a small cliff before you're in the trees. And it's only a kilometer from the coast here. And that made sense. She saw it, and it never even slowed down. It crossed 1, 2, 3, and went down. Disappeared. Into that mess. And that's where it disappeared. And when I was interviewing her, she actually broke down. She said, I've heard these stories my whole life, living where I do, and I just assumed they were utter nonsense. I'm just glad My little girl didn't see them, right? Well, guess what? A few years later, when we were thinking of doing a show, sort of like a Canadian version of Finding Bigfoot, which never got off the ground, we actually went and talked to her again. All of a sudden, this little girl said, "Mommy, are you going to talk about the big monkey?" And they go, "What?" "The big monkey we saw that night when we were going home." She had seen it. She just hadn't said anything about it. So, yeah. And that's the way the story goes. My file 168, Lisa and her husband, Harry, fishing up a house in the Hope region for her parents to move into. And they just decided to take a break. It's early spring. The sun is out for the first time in weeks and weeks of rain. So they decide to head up Silver Saget Road to, take in the air. And they get to the 5 kilometer point. Oh, the road's blocked by a landslide again. Okay, and it quite often is in the springtime. The road gets blocked, so they had to turn around and head back. And when they got to the 4 kilometer point, she notices this figure disappearing in the trees on the right-hand side of the road. Disappears into a ditch. She tells her husband, he has no idea, but they pass the spot, and they pass an old trail, and he sees it come out onto the trail. And that's the spot where it happened. She saw it disappear. And you can see how thick this stuff is, even in the springtime, before there's any leaves. Oh, by the way, that's her husband standing right there. Tell me, until I pointed him out, how many of you didn't see him? Yeah. That shows you how well things can blend in, even when they don't even try. I've had so many witnesses tell me over the years, and this fits into some of the talks you've heard today already. The witnesses said, if I hadn't looked right at it, I never would have known it was there. It was standing that still, right? They don't notice it until it moves, okay? And most of the times, they don't come out of the tree line to watch you in your campsite or something like that. They're 20 feet back in the shadows watching you, right? So we took a look around. We found these tracks. Track number 1. And this is in frozen ground. Remember, it's early spring, so it's still below 0. So the ground freezes, and it gets warm, it changes to rain, everything gets soft, something goes through these tracks, it gets cold again, it all refreezes, right? That was track number 1. And a good example of what we call a mid-tarsal break in that track. Well, that's a bottle cap that it stepped on. It was that somebody had left there. Yeah. Track number 2, 4.5 feet away from track number 1. Track number 3, 4 feet from track number 2. So a human can do that if he's running, right? But he usually doesn't run in the wintertime in frozen ground in bare feet. Another Bridal Falls Forest Service Road. This is just a Google map to show you where it is. Bridal Falls. The road goes up and goes all the way up Mount Shem, and Bridal Falls disappears. It used to go right over into the next canyon, but it's been blocked off for years. 2008 was a very busy year for me. The first time, I've heard about this case in such an unusual way. Bella and her husband, who wishes to remain anonymous, and to this day wishes to remain anonymous, went up to a high viewpoint up Bridal Falls Forest Service Road, to do whatever couples do up there at night when they're looking at the lights of the Fraser Valley in the distance, feeling the distance, At 2:30 in the morning, they're coming back down, solely in four-wheel drive. Bella, unfortunately, never saw it, okay? She was fiddling with CDs or something, so she was looking down. All she remembers is her husband grabbed her arm, hit the brakes, and said, "Did you see that?" And she goes, "Well, what? What did you see?" "Naked hairy guy, And he goes, "Well, no, what did you see?" He crossed the road, just, 2 steps, and he was gone. It's a very narrow road. That's our Polaris Ranger that we like going in the bush with. That's a colleague of mine, Bill Miller, taking a look at the spot where it happened. And He moved forward a little bit, past the spot where it happened, and stopped right where the Bridal Falls Creek goes down. And he kept talking about it. And she finally clued in. She said, "Are you saying you saw a Sasquatch?" And his reply is, "No, there's no such thing as a Sasquatch. Doesn't exist. No way." No. As a matter of fact, to this day, he will not say it was a Sasquatch he saw. He said, "I've heard about them. I've hunted my whole life. I've been all over the mountains. I have no idea what I saw that night. It looks like a Sasquatch. It fits the description of the Sasquatch. But it couldn't have been a Sasquatch because there's no such thing as a Sasquatch." It's the same thing. That I found impressive because he will not say. As a matter of fact, he told his wife when they got home, "Tell nobody that this happened. Tell nobody." But she told her friend, who told another friend, whose husband worked at the mill where I live and remembered me and what I do. So I heard the story, and I called him the next day, and the first thing her husband said to me when he answered the phone is, "How the hell did you hear about this?" So I had to tell. I managed to convince him, calm down. I got in, managed to interview them both about what had happened. Went to the site. You can see where something came out of there. The mountainside's like a 45-degree angle, right? That's Bill pointing to where it came out. You can see, and you can see through the thick bush on the other side where something or someone plowed through there at 2:30 in the morning. By the way, it was, let's see if I remember this correctly. August 18th, 2008. Okay? That's Bill pointing to where the spot. There were no clear, distinct footprints here, but you could see where something plowed through there. Right? Now, these two reporters for the Chilliwack paper heard about the story, and so we kept the witnesses' story quiet. We kept their confidentiality, but we just told them. They published the story in the paper the next day called "If You Go Into the Woods Today." Well, this young man, Ryan Kozak, BC File 161, he read that story and said to his mother, "My God, I saw something on that same road later on that following evening." So he told her about it. He called the paper called us, and we went and interviewed him. And we interviewed him out at the spot where his sighting took place. And that's where it was. It was kind of comical. He said he saw this thing leaning against his feeder stump, and when his headlights came around the corner and on it, he said it was like a cartoon. Instead of going around the stump and disappearing down the hillside, it scrambled up and went over it. Its feet moving, he called it like a ninja you see on TV. Like Panic, and you can see all the marks on the tree where something had gone up and through it. And if I had done that, I think I would have broken my neck. And while we were interviewing him, we realized you didn't see it the following evening. You saw it 10:30 p.m. the 18th, the night before. Midnight comes around. It's now the 19th when our first story happened, right? So he actually saw it 4.5 hours before. So we got two reports from two different people who didn't know each other, 4.5 hours apart, less than a kilometer apart on the same stretch of road. One that's going up the mountain, the other that's going down. It's a fair bet, if the stories are true, they both saw the same creature. Can't say that with 100% certainty, but that's what I think. They probably saw the same creature. That's Bill and them, but Bill looking at the stump. It's a feeder stump, so that means there's another tree going out of it, so it's been there quite a while. Mark Horton, BC File 162, the bear hunter incident. He was out hunting bear early in the morning. Walking along this road, 2008. Look how thick bush it is. He's hunting black bear right there. He gets to this spot right here. And he just sees out of the corner of his eye a large rock coming towards him, spiraling. The rock misses him. It splashes into this bog. Well, the next one, that's the spot where it hit. Splashing him with smelly water. It's a bog, it's a swamp, it stinks, it's horrible. We were in there trying to find the rock. Yeah. He says it splashed him, and all he saw was a head and shoulders of something going around along the tree line around this bog. It would take a few steps, stop. Look what he was doing. Take a few steps more, stop. Take a few steps more, stop. Mike Horton is 6'4". He was dressed in camouflage, carrying a 30-06 high-powered rifle with a scope. He said, "I don't know about you, but I would not throw rocks at a man like that." You know, but whoever this was did, and he went looking. He said, "We found an area where it looked like all the stuff had been flattened, but we never found anything like tracks or anything." Well, Miller and I, and another researcher who accompanied us, did, and we found these tracks. That's track number 1. You can't see it very well. Can you see the toes along there and the heel? The next one's better. Yeah, can you see that? Yeah, the toe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And remember, these are tracks in bog debris, not dirt. Layers and layers of rotting leaves, sticks, gunk, you name it, right? Next one. A little close up. Can you actually see that all right? Yeah. Big toe, next toe, next toe, next toe, next toe. Heel. That proves that someone or something was there when he said it happened, at least in my opinion. Okay? There's another one.
Okay.
It's a little better. You can see all the clear toes there. Close up of the toes. Me coming out with the cast after I cast the track. We had to do it. We couldn't wait any longer because the weather was going to turn real bad and it was going to downpour rain for another 3 days, so we decided to cast it and bring it back out. Kevin Francis, file number 167. He's actually a host of a radio show in the Lower Mainland called Left of the Valley. But when he was coming home early one night in September of 2008, he was passing this piece of property, and he's standing where he said they saw the thing, 2:30 in the morning, patches of fog here and there, kind of creepy. He sees this large hairy thing standing on the side of the road. He passes it. Never really reacted. He just sort of... His driveway is only 2 houses down. And then he stops it. What the hell? Well, that was the one basically it was. And there's the property, and it's kind of a joke because if you look at the sign over the property, it says Bigfoot. It's now an airsoft game called the Bigfoot Field, where they have those war games, things like that, right? So I went to the owner, I asked him, "Do you have any gorilla costumes, and do you do any, like, games where you hunt monsters and stuff like that?" He just smiled at me. Wouldn't say anything. But I heard from reliable sources that, yeah, they do have 2 gorilla costumes, right? Now, whether he was out there at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to freak out someone on the road, I don't know. That's what the guy said. This lady, Barb Norris, 164, not too far from the board, said she saw one walking down this road and disappeared off to the right. That's my old vehicle there that I nearly got killed in. Right there. Now, it is a neighborhood and stuff. There are houses, but there's a lot of woods in between. And this is just above the American border at the location where 800 Street hits 20th Avenue, right? She did a sketch for it, and she said this is what she saw. It was big, shaggy, hairy, and was walking away from me. And that's all she... I'm not saying it was a Sasquatch. As far as she's concerned, it could be a guy. And she said, and she described it as one of those old rah-rah coats that they used to wear in the old football games back, and that's what she was thinking at the time. Yeah. Ooh. Vera kid. Went outside, couldn't understand why the neighbor's dog was barking. Said she saw this figure standing right behind this tree near the tire swing looking at her. She got close enough to it, she said she thought she could see a wound in its lip. And it just stared at her for a few moments before it slowly turned and walked away. Dogs didn't seem to bother it. Her presence didn't seem to bother it. Walked away. That's the community hall in DeRoche where this happened. The thing walked along the track and disappeared into the trees along conveniently named Crazy Creek. Nobody saw it except for her. And I thought that's very strange. And then I went up and down there and checked it out, and I noticed nobody saw me. So, anything's possible, right? Marvin Stryker, we call him Monkey Man.
Monkey Man.
Never got above grade, left school very young, grade 5 to take care of his ailing mother. Worked hard all his whole life. was driving up the west side of Harris Lane, 12-kilometer point. He sees what he says calls a monkey running across the road around a big bend in the road, right there. Bill Miller's standing where he saw it. He's coming down this way, turns around. It's like a big turn. Been by it. He says it came out and just ran across the road, and he called it a monkey. And we said, you know, you've known us for years. You know what you do. How come you never told us about this issue? He said, because someone just rode a darn monkey. And so we questioned him, well, what, did it have a tail? No. Did it have this? No. And finally Bill said, Marvin, why do you not think it was a Sasquatch? He said, well, it wasn't 8 feet tall. It was only this high. And he goes, Marvin, do you think polar bears are 800-pound killing machines at birth? They're little fluffy things. You can put them in your coat pocket, you know. They're born cute and small. And it's like a light bulb went on his head. The idea of it being a Sasquatch because of its size just never occurred to him. Never occurred to him. And it don't matter. You have to remember that to him, it doesn't matter if you're talking about a gorilla, orangutan, or a little spider monkey. It's all monkey to him, you know, so he called it monkey. This gentleman, Mr. Barnett, 186, driving south of Pitt Lake. These are all recent incidents, right? South of Pitt Lake. He assumed it was a security guard he was looking at in some sort of dark coverall uniform on the road because there had been a movie filming in that general area the week before, and they had left phony police cars out there, you know, and stuff, where they're filming their action scene in the bush. I don't know the story, the cops have a gunfight there or something like that. And he thought they were still there until he realized there was nothing there anymore. And this thing just seemed to cross the road, go through 2 extremely deep ditches. And if you've ever seen the roadside ditches in British Columbia, you can drown in them, right? That's my car, and that's where he was. And I took the camera shot about where he said it crossed the road. And again, we get where something went through the grass, something big, you know, and disappeared. These people just making up. He didn't say it was a Sasquatch either. That's what I like. They don't claim they saw a Sasquatch. I like it when they basically tell me something, describe it, and they let me draw the conclusions of what it might have been. Okay? And you know, I told you, I got some witnesses that don't even want to say it was a Sasquatch. They still won't say it was a Sasquatch. Now, to me, that's impressive. The biggest problem with shows like Finding Bigfoot today and stuff, it's made seeing a Sasquatch trendy, you know. And I've had people call me up, telling me these incredible stories, hoping I'll refer to them to the show because they want to be on the show, right? That's just a big red flag to me. Yeah. Most recent one, just January 2017. Well, you can't see that track very well, but that one shows up a little better. On the outskirts of conveniently named Sasquatch Provincial Park in British Columbia. This is a case that annoys me to no end because the witnesses in this case should have been some of the best I ever heard from. You ever heard the name John Kirk? He's the head and president of the B.C.Bigfoot. That's the British Columbia Scientific Cryptozoological Club. I dare you to say that 5 times fast. All right? They look into everything, lake monsters, sea serpents, Sasquatch, right? They were out on the Harrison Lake, stopped at the entrance of Sasquatch Park, waiting for people to catch up to them. And the people that they were waiting for were 2 American friends who were paying a visit, researchers, Kenneth Jorowski from Maryland, and a David Winter, who's from Washington. I was kind of hoping he'd be here tonight. Yeah. And the 3rd member, a Canadian, who was Zach Zarrison from the BFRO, who was to join them. And while they were waiting, Winona Kirk, John's wife, saw a figure moving up in the trees. It was in shadow. It was dark. This is like 4:30 in January. It gets dark early in the winter up in Canada, right? They just see this tall figure up there. It's not impossible. It could have been a man up there. There is a pullout where some people unload their ATVs. The government doesn't supply washroom, so a lot of people have a habit of going in behind the big trees to do their business, right? Have no idea. But something was moving up there, and they were all looking at it. And this is where the story gets interesting, because they kind of contradicted each other in what they told me. They told me that Jack Zachariason never saw the thing. He arrived just after it happened. But Jason Degran told me, no, he did see it. But he says he can't say it was a Sasquatch. It was a big figure. He doesn't know what it was. But we did go there a couple of days later with myself, and we did find these tracks. And we cast them. That step was 6 feet. I tend to wonder if it was a stride, and maybe it touched here and came down, but we don't know. But we did cast 2 of them. Oop, went too far. I see you'd be missing a picture there. But you know, we have I see wolf tracks all the time. We got them. Mountain lion tracks. These appeared right in our tires. It was following us. But I never saw the cat. And so what did Bill do after we found the mountain lion was following us? He decided to go off, start a fire, and start cooking hot dogs. Yeah, not smart. Big cat there. You can see the width of the tire. Black bear tracks, see them all the time. Grizzly bear tracks, we still got a healthy grizzly population up there. Harrison Lake, this area, you know, you go up there at night, you won't see a single porch light anywhere. There's nobody. Nobody. Some people say in BC, like Chris was saying this morning, that there's areas where people have never stood. Yeah, I guess that is true. But I think a more accurate description was, if you're a person standing on that ridge or on that shoreline, you're probably the first person to stand that spot in 30 years. There may not be somebody else for another 20, you know. That's British Columbia. The possibility of a large primate living in there going undetected or undiscovered, totally possible. I can't see any reason why not. Okay? The slide that came down Chase Lake and caused a tsunami to go down to the lake, just had a recent report from there this year. But it used to be a great circle. Well, they don't plan on opening that road again because the mountain's unstable. That's the kind of thing you have to deal with when you live in mountain country. Every now and then the roads get taken out. Every now and then the mountains come down. You know, close above it. Long history reports around there. Sunshine Valley, British Columbia, beautiful place. You'll never forget it. And I think my time is pretty well up, so I was wondering if anyone has any questions. Yes, sir.
You've debunked a lot of these stories.
A lot of hoaxing attempts, yeah.
What's kind of like some of the common elements of the stories that you've debunked that, you know,
Well,
the signs and what tells you that it's...
Well, when someone sees something a mile away, but they give such detail as though he was standing this close, you know, that's a red flag, okay? Someone who comes out, in 40 years of research, I may have had a fleeting glimpse of an actual Sasquatch once. But I won't say so because I have a philosophy I have used my whole time doing this. Stick to the facts, never deviate the facts. I saw a figure. He was a mile away, almost. He appeared to be walking upright. He was jet black in color. But the facts also are, I couldn't see any detail. He was too far away. You know, I can't say with 100% or it was a big odd man way up there. If he was huge. Matter of fact, this figure, the way I remember it, he was big even for a Sasquatch. But I don't know. If that was a Sasquatch, I saw one. If it wasn't, I still have not. And yet you get somebody like that who gives such detail like they're standing right beside it. A researcher who claims 15 sightings in the last 2 years. In 40 years, I've seen maybe one once. Seen tracks about 8, 9 times. Investigated hundreds of reports. But someone can't go out his back door without encountering Sasquatch. There's a problem. Yeah, there's something. And I got to tell you, the biggest problem with this research today is the people who call themselves researchers. Okay? There are a lot of good ones. A lot of good researchers. A number of them are here tonight. You've heard them speak today. But there are a lot more bad ones. People suffering what I politely call Ivan Marks syndrome, if you don't know who that is. Ivan Marks was the first example of this I know. Someone who may have found something authentic once, was the center of attention for a while, and when that attention dies down, they find the attention was more important than the research itself, so they start making things up to remain the center of attention. The biggest example of that, in my humble opinion today, is one Todd Standing. I personally don't believe a word the man says. He counters Sasquatch all the time. Just ask him. He's Superman. You know? Any more? Yeah, Ron.
When the jackal was using the same time
sorry, I couldn't hear you, mate. Yeah, railway line. Yeah, the same railway line is still in use today. It used to be the old wagon road. It was considered a wonder of the world at the time. It was the only way in and out. And they built the Trans-Canada Railway on top of it. Okay? And in 1884, there was still a big gap. It was 1 year away from completion. So the only way to get Jacko out of here was go to Vancouver and take him out by ship or cross the border to the American Transcontinental Railway, which was complete. From Vancouver? Oh, 60 miles or so. It's about 20 miles from Hope. It's only about 5 miles from Yale. And it's still in use today. There's a line on the other side of the river now, too. But in 1884, that didn't exist. And the Trans-Canada Highway is about 100 feet above it. Of course, in 1884, that didn't exist. And believe me, if you walked that road, that route, back in those days, you took your life in your hands. Anything else? Sir.
Thanks for your presentation today. I did have one other question, and you didn't really address this in your discussion, but in any of the research that you've done, do they describe the smell of the...
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, smell is described, I find, maybe 1 in every 10 incidents, okay? Make any mention. A lot of people give you the impression this thing sinks to hell, heaven, old time. I find that maybe 1 in 10 reports mention any smell at all. And it's usually smell in the area after the thing had moved off. So I think it may be a glandier thing it does when it's feeling stressed. And people detect it. I mean, orangutans do this. And the mountain gorilla is known to do this, especially the males, right? They give off this odor. Okay, but most 90% of the time, no, there's no mention of smell at all. I imagine it doesn't smell any worse than any other large hair-covered creature that has walked through a river in 48 hours. Yeah. Sir?
How many stories you've gotten that you cannot debunk?
Huh?
How many stories have you gotten that you cannot debunk?
You mean on that presentation?
No, that you believe are...
Oh, yes, I believe about half the ones I've been told. Yeah, I think there is a large pyramid. I think the Sasquatch exists. The problem with hoaxing, it's getting to epidemic proportions, and all the researchers you've done will say the same thing. They probably hear from people just like I do, people claiming the wildest things, and it happens over and over again, and it's gotten worse, not better. It's getting far worse. The internet, great tools it is in some ways the worst thing that ever happened to this research because it's a soapbox for every snake oil salesman out there. It really is. And if you do your homework and don't overdo it, you can make up a story and sound completely convincing. But I notice that a lot of the times they still make the same mistakes. They can't stop themselves. And they just go overboard, you know. So the red flags go off. That's just the way it is, right? People love telling stories. People like telling monster stories. And in the Sasquatch field, it's no different than I imagine. I used to say with pride back when I started, at least we're not as bad as the UFO field. Yeah, well, we are now. We are. We really are. Anyone else? Thank you, folks. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed the museum and paid a visit, okay?
You've been watching Thomas Steenburg here on 13 O'Clock Live. And you can see Thomas Steenburg on the Sasquatch Secrets with my friend Nikki. So be sure to check out her channel, and I'll put that in the comments here in a minute. Hey, so I guess we're going to play another tune. And then after that, we're going to check out something from Bigfoot Michigan Rob. So stick around.
Something's out there in the Everglades, where the snakes and the gators thrive. Toughest creature that was ever made. a skunk, some folks might say. So even if you never see him, you might know if he was by that way. Somewhere out there in the sawgrass, where the bay and cypress grow, he's got a home no one will ever find, 'cause no one knows where the skunk ape goes. No one can track him in the day. You'd never find him in the night. That creature seen from the highway could be 50 miles away by morning light. Is he a cousin to the Bigfoot? With kinfolk all across this land? Or something else entirely different? We only know it's not a man. There's no man that could survive the kind of life this creature chose. And we may never have the answer, 'cause no one knows where the skunk ape goes. Sun goes down across the Everglades, its secrets safely hid within. Like what became of those from yesterday, who ventured there to not be seen again. Then the mysteries of the Everglades, some answers never are disclosed. No need to even ask the question, 'cause no one knows where the skunk ape goes. Nobody knows where the skunk ape goes.
Hope you enjoyed that little rockin' Bigfoot tune from back in the day by Lenny Green. Hey, I'm gonna look up some Bigfoot Michigan Rob, because you know it wouldn't be a show unless we had a story from Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And be sure to stick around after the story from Bigfoot Michigan Rob. And I'm going to play something really touching and really special that's going to be kind of heartbreaking. But I got to show this story right now, because this is Bigfoot Michigan Rob telling a Bigfoot encounter
Hi, everybody.
from South Carolina.
April 21st. You know what that means? It's time for another encounter story from either a subscriber or an emailer. And this is an interesting one. I want you all to leave a comment and tell me what you think, because this was sent to me. I was conversing with this person named Jerry via email. And I guess this is quite a stirring in South Carolina. I think it was in 1997. And it was about two young boys, 12 and 16 years old, who had a Bigfoot experience, which they reported to the local paper. The thing about the story is these two young men, they, in the beginning, they had said it was a 23-year-old woman that relayed the story to them. I guess they were young kids, and they didn't, I guess they wanted to believe, being younger, maybe they weren't going to be taken seriously, so they kind of made up that it was a woman, right? But, you know, I found the article intriguing because South Carolina was in an uproar over this. So what I love about you guys is you always leave cool comments. So I'm going to present this. You tell me what you think, positive or negative. But I figure, you know what? You guys are smart. You guys like these stories, and I'd like you guys to think about this and give me your comments. I do thank each and every single one of you for subscribing to Bigfoot Michigan Rob. If this is your first time here, I got many of these stories, including I do 2 live shows per week. And of course, I'm with Tex on Texas Front Porch. We have 6 live shows for each and every single one of you. And don't forget that the Super Thanks is open if you care to donate. And here we go. Happy Friday. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment. Jackie Hutto, a 14-year-old boy in the small town of Nices, reports that he saw the creature outside his home at midday, July 15th. He was inside the house when he heard his family's dogs barking from inside a dog pen in the backyard. When Jackie went outside to quiet the dogs, he says he saw a large creature tugging at the wire walls of the dog pen. He reports that the animal was about 8 or 8.5 feet tall and covered in black fur, except for its face, chest, and knees, where brown skin was very visible. It barred large discolored teeth that were shaped like baby blocks, as he describes, and it also possessed prominent male genitalia. Additionally, in the contrast to the popular conception of Bigfoot being a big, powerful, muscular beast, this creature was described as being really fat or obese. When the creature looked at him, Jackie screamed and took off toward the house. Turning back to look as he ran, Jackie says that Bigfoot also fled from him, scurrying off into the woods. His brother David, 16, heard the screaming and came out of the house in time to glimpse the creature before it vanished into the forest. The Hutto brothers decided they needed to tell the world about what they had seen, but they didn't call the police or the Wildlife Commission. Instead, they went straight to the media. And this is where the tale begins to get tricky or a little knotty, as I explained earlier prior to telling the story, you guys. David Hutto called up the local newspaper, the Times and the Democrat, and faithfully reported all the details of Jackie's encounter, except for one. He said that Jackie Hutto was a 23-year-old woman. A brief article about the Bigfoot sighting appeared in the paper the following day, complete with quotes from Miss Hutto. Even though no reporter had spoken with her, the following excerpt comes from the end of the Times and the Democrat, the right of it read, "If the Bigfoot was someone in a costume, it fooled me," she said. She believed the Bigfoot ran too fast to be someone in a costume. "I'm pretty sure he wanted to eat the dogs or something. I keep looking out the windows to make sure it's not there," she says. Now, she is actually the boy. I'm a disbeliever in a sense, and I still am, but I kinda am starting to have a change of heart. The Hutto brothers had a further change of heart soon thereafterwards, when they came forward with the truth about Jackie's age and his gender, being, of course, a boy. Apparently, they claimed the initial ruse was an abrupt attempt at an anonymity rather than deception. David also admitted that he too had seen the creature, which he had declined to mention previously. "I haven't told nobody. I seen it because I was afraid they'd say I was crazy," he explains. By the time these aspects of the story were straightened out, the sighting had already become an area phenomenon. Local residents were consumed with Bigfoot mania, and the story quickly garnered attention across South Carolina and beyond. Many of the townspeople of Nices had a hard time believing the story, and had a hard time believing their local newspapers, and so willingly it spread before having all the facts. "I think it's a bunch of baloney," said one resident, who characterized the Times and Democrats' decision to run the story as really slack and not very truthful. My kids have not been out of the house all day long because they were scared when they saw this, says the resident. The resident also expressed concern for possible trigger-happy Bigfoot hunters traipsing throughout the community. You get a bunch of people out there shooting up everything. Other Nieces residents are more inclined to take the Bigfoot sighting in the stride. Local merchant displayed an airbrushed Bigfoot welcome center sign outside his dog city paint and body shop. He says his hunting dogs will be venturing out on the trail for the creature. So these guys, now whether this is true or not, whether they've seen the Bigfoot or made it up, the purpose behind this story is this whole town, South Carolina here, they're all in an uproar now over this. People are scared to let their kids out. People are shooting up in the forest. So this is really something going on here locally for them. We don't want to hurt him. We want to feed him. We had to try and eat. If this Bigfoot tried to eat dogs because it went to a restaurant, he would have gotten thrown out. I don't know what that has to do with the story. I'm just reading it as the email is sent in to me. Brenda Polk, a Bigfoot enthusiast in Concord, North Carolina, was also thrilled to hear of the Nieces sighting. Polk, who says she saw Bigfoot near the South Carolina border in 1991, is sending out her support to Jackie Hutto and his decision to go public with this sighting, despite the fact that he made up that it was a woman. I've tried to get a support group started for people in the Carolinas that have spotted Bigfoot and have a place for them to report their sighting without people telling them they've lost their minds. People that have talked to me about it tell me it's a good thing. I even brought a computer to get on the internet. There's a lot of Bigfoot information out there, she describes. She also believes that Bigfoot possess no danger to humans. They won't attack us unless they are attacked. I don't think it's going to hurt anybody, and I do not think that the speculation of this creature attempting to eat dogs is even true. She goes on to say that dogs must have been frightened, though, to run off and act like that. I've been studying now for the past year, and I haven't seen where any actual attacks of humans have happened, let alone dogs. Whether they believe the story or not, many South Carolinians are liking the Nieces Bigfoot to the notorious lizard man that supposedly terrorized Palmetto State Park in the summer of 1988, described as a 7-foot humanoid reptile with scaly green skin and red eyes. The alleged creature endangered a booming cottage and industry of t-shirts and bumper stickers until the novelty wore off. Only time will tell if Jackie Hutto's Bigfoot might prove to be more than just another summertime trailer prank. I don't know. I think it was worth telling you guys, and the reason I even went on with this story, it's kind of sketchy, I think, myself. But here's the thing. The moral behind this story, which I want to bring out, is this. You yell, you scream Bigfoot, some communities, they might get paralyzed by this. There was people traipsing off in the woods, firing shots in the woods, hunting for Bigfoot. Whether the story is true, believable, I don't know, but it just goes to show you what one story can do to a community, whether it's hoax or whether it's factual. Because still to this day, there are people out there that are in a panic when they hear about these sightings with these cryptids. I thought it was worth telling you guys. Leave a comment. Was it real? Do you believe the kids? Did they make it up? Did they make up that it was a 23-year-old woman because as kids they didn't think they would be believed? I don't know. You let me know. I hope you liked it. Until next time, I'm Bigfoot Michigan Rob.
Hey, if you want to check out Bigfoot Michigan Rob, you be sure to check him out on his channel. You'll find his link in the screen. And I love Bigfoot Michigan Rob. I really do. He's a good friend of mine. So be sure to check out his channel. And his new book, True Cryptid Encounters, is out. And if you pick up that book, you will not be disappointed. One day, really soon in the future of October, I'll be doing a live stream. And this live stream will be called True Cryptid Encounters Audio Book, where I'm going to play True Cryptid Encounters as told by Rob, but I'm going to play the stories right out of his book. Hey, that's going to be cool, huh? And I know there's a Bigfoot out there. And I'm going to play a song real quick, and then I'm going to play something really special that's going to make you cry.
Hey everybody, got a new song for you called I Know There's Bigfoot in Ohio. Here in the heartland, neath the rivers and the streams, where the forests turn around, the farmland seems. Ohio River flowing from the Appalachians to the sea. Here in the Buckeye State, Bigfoot are what they see. I hear the woodknock saying, "Don't come here." I see the footprints showing in the mud so clear. From Coshocton County and everywhere I go, I know there's Bigfoot in Ohio. Yeah. Mohican River flows slow and lazy. Sightings and strange screams driving locals crazy. They've seen them crossing roads into the knobby woods. Sightings in the dark in Minerva's neighborhood. I hear the woodknock saying, "Don't come here." I see the footprints showing in the mud so clear. From Guernsey County and everywhere I go, I know there's Bigfoot in Ohio. Oh yeah. South of Columbus, in the Hocking Hills they roam. East of Canton, Beaver Creek State Park's their home. Wherever forest grows and water's running free, they're in those deep ravines, that's where they'll be. I hear the woodknock saying, "Don't come near." I see the footprints showing in the mud so clear. From Ashland County and everywhere I go, I know there's Bigfoot in Ohio. Yeah, I hear the woodknock saying, "I know you're here." I see those footprints walking in the mud so clear. From Salt Fork State Park and everywhere I go, I know there's Bigfoot in Ohio. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Oh, what you think about that, YouTube? Let me know in the comments below. Well, if they actually show up. And now I'm going to take a minute to give you a somber note. I want to talk to you for a minute about my friend Joe Snyder. He had a channel called Western New York Bigfoot. My friend Joe, he got sick lately. I don't even it brings a tear to my eye. I don't even know where to start with this. It's better I just show you the video and let it explain itself. But he got sick, and he apparently has cancer. And my friend Joe has only been given like 3 weeks. And if you join me Tuesday night on my show called The Witchet Hour, you'll get a lot more of the full story. But till then, check this out.
Molly, his wife, and Joe's been dealing with, for those who don't know, been dealing with liver cancer. And he had some scans, and yesterday's post was by his wife, and it says basically, so yesterday we came to the ER because Joseph had lost the ability to walk. They did a CT scan and found the cancer had spread to his bones. They found basically tumors on his vertebrae and ribs, and there's also a fracture to one of his vertebrae. And we met with the hospitalist this morning, and we're told that Joe's cancer is spreading fast, and he only has a few months. The best they can do is manage the pain, so he can spend his last days at home with his dogs, cats, and his wife. And anyway, I want to say this to Joe, because I know, Joe, you'll be watching this on broadcast. I know you were over in Nikki's show for a little bit because they were getting ready to medicate you, and when you get medicated, you kind of get zonked down. I get that. But Joe, we love you. And we love Molly too. And so anyway, folks, there's a GoFundMe page for him. And if you can give, a couple of bucks, that would be awesome. They're almost halfway to their goal, which is awesome. But Joe and Molly are in for a long few months. Yeah. And, Joe and I have actually, we've met, we've been out in the field, and, Joe was supposed to actually spend a few days, will be the end of the month, go to the Whitehall thing, and that's that's all scrapped now. Looks like Joe's squatching days are over with, but, and Joe, and I couldn't post this video because I saw it this morning, and, I said to myself, how can I do a show? But then Joe said something in his video this morning. He was very upset. He was crying and saying how he loved everybody, and, I can't believe how, the GoFundMe page, and you guys are, and, his final wish really is for us to carry on. Take care of Molly, and, carry on. And, do him right. Do him right by carrying on. And he was very honored to be in our company. And, so, how can you do a show? You do a show, you do exactly what he said. Honor him.
Yeah, that's a pretty tragic thing going on. I was on a show called Untold Radio, which did a fundraiser for my friend Joe last night. And if you join me Tuesday on Night Flights, I'm going to cover this sad topic a little more in detail. But now I'm going to change the topic. I'm going to go on and show something. Forgive me, I'm a little choked up. It's really hitting me hard that my friend Joe is so sick. It bothers me greatly. More than I'll ever admit.
Along the Illinois.
Okay, well, I'm having a problem or two. Give me a second. Jesus Christ.
Along the Illinois River in Peoria. We always went down the...
And we're going to show something from my friend Bigfoot Anon. And I want to give a special shout out to my friend Bigfoot Anon, because as tragedy has been befallen befallen the Bigfoot community. My friend Anon, Connor Flynn, just lost his mother this week. So there's a lot of tragedy in the Bigfoot community. So check out a few minutes of this video by Connor while I mix me another drink and drown my sorrows.
Close to 20 minutes. This occurred while hiking the Pacific Crest Trail near Lake Tahoe, California, at an elevation just under 8,000 feet. This beast was massive. Georgia Highway 25, about 2 a.m., a family of white ones were eating a deer on the side of the road I was traveling on, with the father standing in the ditch watching over them. And he was about 10 feet tall standing in the ditch. I was literally a few feet away from them when I passed them. I saw 2 UFO over Columbia, South Carolina at 4 o'clock a.m. on Highway 77 and 26, doing zigzags in 90-degree angles at crazy speeds back in 2011. So I'm sitting here and I just heard this huge roar outside of my window. I'm in Morristown, Tennessee. I'm also in a residential neighborhood. I'm pretty sure there's Bigfoot around here, and hearing that just confirmed. It kind of sounded like a lion roar, but louder. I heard howling and growling, yes, both, back in the woods at home in Ohio. I don't effing know what it was, but it wanted to eat me, and it was dark, so I thought it was the end of my life there. I heard one roar when I was 22 years old, made an African lion sound like a pussycat, and I lived about 30 miles out in the country here in West Virginia. There was one time I was on a 3-day solo backpacking trip and decided to get an early start and leave camp at 5 a.m. So it was still dark and I was walking past another trail that led somewhere else in the forest. I heard something say, "Hey, come here." Whatever said it was just chilling in the dark with no light source. I stopped and was going to check if someone needed help. Then they said, "Come here, come here, come here," in a really weird tone of voice. I can't explain. After that, I changed my mind and started to walk away. They screamed really loudly. I said, "Come here, effing right now." And at that point, I started rushing down the trail. Till sunrise, I kept hearing the same voice telling me to come here along the tree line. Somewhere was the only time I thought I might need to generally use my pistol. Yesterday, I was out riding with some friends and one of their quads shut off randomly. And I didn't think anything of it, so I was just told to continue up the trail. After going a little bit up, I noticed a deer running on the trail. Then I turned my head straight and I see a small, bald head poke around a tree, then disappear. It was about 3 feet tall and had very pale skin. I was so shaken by it, I immediately turned around and went to tell others. At first they thought I was just messing with them until one of them turned around and yelled, "Oh my God, he's not joking. I just saw it run across the trail up there." Needless to say, we got on our quads and took off out of there. The trails are all grown in, so we didn't see a face, just the top of the bald head running faster than any human could. On our way out and home, we heard whistling and yelps. None of us stopped because we were scared out of our mind at that point. It continued for about 30 minutes after we got back to the house and then stopped suddenly. My friend said when he saw it, it went into a daze where everything was kind of slow motion. So we started piecing stuff together. My friend Robert said he heard something a few months ago on his way to work, walking to his car, and it took off fast, screaming through the same woods. We think it was the same thing we saw yesterday. We also came to a conclusion that the place we ride is very bad luck for us. Every quad or dirt bike we've taken down there has broke or gotten stuck at one point. Happened near Chester, West Virginia. Had a close encounter of one running outside my tent in Evergreen, Alabama. I was recently on a trail in Tennessee, and while I was walking, I saw a dark figure peeking between the trees to my left. It was solid black and kind of human size in height, with a broad upper body. I walked back to do a double take of where I saw it, but nothing was there. I got chased out of the woods by something while on my dirt bike at 13 years old. Never saw it though. I used to live right near the rainforest in Washington State. I think the Grassman and Bigfoot are one and the same. That's my opinion though. I know they are real. My father seen one and got cast in the prints, and there was hair in the cast, and it stunk to high heaven. Me and my wife saw Bigfoot on Route 60 in Virginia at the foot of the Appalachian. Bigfoot 2011, early November, 10 p.m. Full moon light, 9 miles past Wyden, coming towards Clay. I heard vocalizations and wood knocks, SWVA, and Western North Carolina. I live in Northeast Tennessee and heard a baby crying out in our woods. I was getting my boots on to go investigate, and the last cry had a cat sound toward the end. I did not go investigate, but later saw the biggest darn black cat ever on a fallen tree. I'm thinking it was possibly a panther. I moved here in a small town in North Carolina mountains and was told by the neighbors what the tradition regarding the Sasquatch were. Simple trading of apples in a spot they made, and that's all I'm about to say about it. Cherokee little people, they're as real as you and I. My wife keeps putting apples out for them. My sister-in-law spotted one late spring where we are located in West Virginia. She's not one to mess around or easily be shaken, and she was very unnerved by the sighting. Our neighbor is a federal game warden, and he says black panthers aren't in the area, but I believe her, and she believes what she saw. My dad and grandpa grew up in Greenbrier, and they told me many stories about Black Panther encounters. People said they're not here. That's a chocolate cougar. I believe my dad and grandpa. My son even encountered one camping one time when he was younger. I live in Yancey County and remember hearing my grandparents tell stories of Black Panther in the area when they was younger. I've experienced a mountain lion, cougar, twice. Mountain lions are considered non-existent around here, but are legally protected. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? My friend and I both saw something on the side of the highway in Tennessee during a road trip. It was a titan in the snow. I'm in Ohio, and I swear I saw one a dozen years back. At night, and I was sober. I drove back roads home
He was
and
sober.
walked this biggest black cat I ever seen. Easily 3 to 4 times size regular cat. It took off, so I couldn't check it out. There are definitely black panthers in these mountains. My husband saw one about 2 years ago, and I know many others have seen him. We live in North Carolina mountains bordering Tennessee. We seen a skunk ape hiding from our truck in the woods when I was little and came upon a nest last year in my mom's house. Blue Ridge Parkway, Virginia. Walking on a short trail, walked through a very cold spot on a sunny day. I couldn't explain it. It was the weirdest thing. When my mom...
Okay, that's enough of that. Hey, be sure to check out Bigfoot of 9, Connor Flynn. You'll find his link in the chat. That's my friend. Hey, if you join me on Tuesday night for my other show, you'll see a little bit more from my friend Connor Flynn. But hey, I noticed my friend Thrash Pondo Ponds is in the chat. Let me give a special shout out to my buddy Thrash. Hey, Thrash, I'm glad to see you survived the hurricane. I was following it closely. I hope you'll do a lot more hurricane updates to keep us informed about your health. But since you're here in this chat, I know that my friend Thrash is okay, and it makes me feel good to know that you're okay, brother. So there's only one thing I can do. Right now, if I can find it, Jesus Christ, I got a lot of subscriptions on my phone. You wouldn't believe how many subscriptions they are on my phone. Not really. Okay, well, I was gonna do that, but I'm gonna play Thrash Pondo's latest hurricane update just because I can.
The morning after.
There you go, Ponds.
It's not too bad. I know I said I'd give you guys a update in the morning, and it's almost afternoon. But sorry, I slept like a rock last night, and I'm not moving very quickly today. But I'm panning. I'm actually standing on my deck this morning, and I'm pondering around, pondering. To show you, look, no fallen trees, no debris. We lost a few leaves. You can almost see the pond through the bracken. But, yeah. Other than that, not much change here then. If you've ever seen it in my winter post, when all those leaves are gone, and you can, like, I have a really nice view of the pond. But yeah, I mean, even my lawn, no downed limbs, no disruption. I think there's an improvement. Although I must say that the biggest thing is my brother-in-law Brendan mowed the lawn yesterday under the wire, I must say. Thank you, Uncle. But anyway, yes, all this claw hair commissars. Again, if anything, I think there's been a slight improvement. The power did blink out at least once. Because all the clocks in the house are going bleep, bleep, flash, flash. So yeah, that is, as they say that. Oh, you can see a little water backing up past the road. But yeah, other than that, look, we came out pretty good. It started to drizzle a little bit here now. So I'm probably going to go back inside in a minute. But I just want to let you know that all is fine here at Thrash's palatial estate. I want to thank all of you for your concern. You guys are aces. And I'm going to see you all tomorrow at 7:30 Thrash time for my live chat. Anyway, until then, be good, be safe, be careful. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again very, 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 very soon.
Thank you, Ponds. We appreciate that update on your situation as you experience the hurricane. I hope this worked. Okay, it's something I want to show, and I'm working on getting it up right now. You just have to give me a minute, because I do things old school. I do things 1974 style. Here we go. Check this out. You're going to love this, guys. This Pond's rocking it.
Now, thank you, Rocky. That'll be all for the day. That is what we call in the trades a technical error.
Hey, Ponds, I hope you enjoyed that. I had I had to do that. I thought it was so cool. I thought it was so funny. What'd you think? Let me know in the comments below. Well, let's get back to playing some cryptic tunes. And I hope you enjoy the music I'm playing, the kind of Bigfoot tunes tonight. Hey, I'm about 3 sheets in the wind there, buddy. Woo! I'm having a party tonight. Oh. The great Lenny Green.
Sunrise, paint the morning skies with shades of flame. Above a quiet wilderness, man has somehow never tried to tame. The moment seems suspended in a land where there's no need for time or clocks. It's yesterday again to the boy who used to walk where Bigfoot walks. So many years have passed, I still can't believe it looks the same. As though it's been protected by a memory that kept it all unchanged. Tonight they'll sing my welcome, the spotted owl, the coyote, and the fox. They'll know that I've come back again to walk where Bigfoot walks. As a boy I knew these wild lands as well as any man. This was like my playground at the time. And times I faced the giant, I came to understand. He'd go his way if only I went mine. They say you can't go home again, but going home is really in your mind. And I think it all depends on what it is back home you're hoping you can find. For me it's being free again, where there's no doors of steel and there's no locks. Free to be that boy again, the one who used to walk walks. Someday this peaceful valley may have to give way to the march of man. And just become a memory to all of those who really love this land. But here today my soul soars among the eagles and the hawks. Today I'm going back again to walk where Bigfoot walks. And it just may be he'll know me as the boy who used to walk where Bigfoot walks.
You know, I really like that guy right there that sings them songs, that Lenny Green. Everybody be sure to check out Lenny Green on YouTube. He does the best of Bigfoot tunes. And I appreciate him letting me use his music here on 13 O'Clock Live. He's kind of becoming my Bigfoot guy. As we close the night down. I want to thank everybody for joining me. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that stupid little bell.
Have you ever walked a trail thinking you're alone? Then wondered at the footfalls echoing your own? Did you notice then that not another creature sound was heard? That not a thing was stirring, not even one small bird? So you stopped, looking all around, but there's no one there. Did you hear a tree limb breaking somewhere out of view? Or speech you didn't recognize for a second, maybe two? Again the silence settles in and you question your own mind. You may think imagination, but you could be wrong this time. So you stop, you wait, and you don't realize you've come near the forest people, they who walk the unseen land. Ever near the forest people, unchanged since time for them began, hiding always from the world of man.
Thanks for coming, Pons.
What kind of creature could this be? So ancient in this modern time. The myth is now reality, and we're left amazed that they were left behind. Did you ever have the feeling there was something watching you? Something or someone always out of view. So you turn and stare intently at the trees all standing round, seeing nothing to explain this feeling you have found. So you don't know, you'd not believe how close you came. You've come near the forest people, they who walk the unseen land. Ever near the forest people, unchanged since time for them began, hiding always from the world of man, hiding always from the world of man.
And that was the Forest People with my man Lenny Green. I want to give a special shout out to my man Thrash Pondo Pons. Thanks for joining us tonight, Pons, and everybody be sure to check out Pons' show Sunday night at 7:30. You'll find his link in the chat. And my flock Sarah, give me a call tomorrow sometime after Paranormal Highway around 1 or 1:30, and we'll talk about getting together for that show you've been planning. And I want to finish tonight with my theme song. And thanks for coming, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe.
Down yonder, there's a big old critter that likes to wander around my backyard, sometimes late at night. Well, it ain't no beaver, bobcat, or bear, 'cause he's 8 foot tall and covered in hair. And the first time I seen him, he gave me quite a fright. Well, he eats from my garden and pees in my grass, and he stings like a skunk mixed with grizzly bear ass, and he scares my cats when they smell him coming around. Well, he spends his time peeing on trees, and he thinks what he wants, and he does what he pleases, like scratching his butt and making a grunting sound. Sasquatch, Sasquatch, knocking on the tree.